If you think ADHD is simply about being distracted, you're only seeing the surface. Inside the ADHD mind, attention, emotions, motivation, and even the sense of time can work differently. And in this video, I'll show you what's really happening beneath the behavior and why understanding it can change the way you see yourself or someone you love. Go ahead, close your eyes and picture this. You are sitting behind the wheel of a bright red Ferrari. The V8 engine is growling, loaded with horsepower, ready to tear through the wind at 185 miles per hour. Pretty cool, right? But wait, bam, a cold dose of reality hits you. The second you reach down to hit the brakes, you realize this supercar is running on bicycle brakes. That is exactly how renowned psychiatrist Edward Hallowell describes the brain of someone with ADHD or attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. It is a neurodevelopmental disorder that directly affects the ability to focus, control impulses, and regulate behavior. And when you hear ADHD, the first image that probably comes to mind is some elementary school kid who cannot sit still, always fidgeting with his hands and feet. But here is the plot twist that modern medicine has been sitting on. ADHD does not just disappear when you grow up. Millions of adults are still trapped inside this condition without ever knowing it. It is just that as you get older, the hyperactivity goes underground, deep inside the mind. And because nobody can see that chaos on the inside, they are quick to slap a label on you. Lazy, undisciplined, a chronic last-minute procrastinator. Have you ever hit a wall and asked yourself, why am I not stupid, but I keep screwing up the most basic things? Today at Apex, we're going to pull back the curtain on the psychology of people with ADHD. Let's find out if you have been driving a Ferrari on bicycle brakes this whole time. Let's get into it. Before rushing to judge, let's pop the hood on the ADHD brain and see how this machine actually runs. Modern medicine has an answer that is blunt, but powerful enough to free millions of people. This chaos does not come from a bad habit. It was programmed in. The truth is, ADHD is nearly 80% genetic, not because you stayed up gaming all night, not because of a loose or careless upbringing. It is a blueprint encoded into your DNA from the moment you took your first breath. If you have been white-knuckling it, trying to stop a Ferrari with bicycle brakes, there is a very good chance one of your parents has been quietly driving the same car. What that genetic difference actually comes down to is how the brain handles two critical chemicals, dopamine and norepinephrine. Think of your nervous system as an engine. Dopamine is your gas tank. It creates motivation and the feeling of reward. Norepinephrine is your spark plug. It helps you wake up and focus. With a typical brain, as soon as you clean your room or finish typing a report, your brain automatically pumps out a combo of gas plus spark as a reward. You feel satisfied and motivated to keep going. But what about the ADHD brain? Their engine has a serious leak. It is not that they have no chemicals at all. It is that the fuel valves, the receptors in the brain, do not know how to absorb them properly. The energy account is always flashing red. Low on gas and running a misfiring spark plug, the brain falls into a constant state of stimulation starvation. Every time it has to deal with boring, repetitive tasks like grinding through an endless spreadsheet or sitting through a long speech from the boss, the prefrontal cortex, the brain's CEO in charge of discipline and planning, just shuts down and goes to sleep. It is like plugging your charger into a dead phone, but the outlet is loose. No power gets in. Forcing them to sit down and focus on something simple at that point is no different from making someone push a boulder uphill. Here is the hard truth to lock in. When someone with ADHD freezes up in front of a boring task, that is the collapse of a biologically proven structure. It is absolutely not because their willpower is weak. Please do not be quick to label someone as undisciplined when their brain is genuinely running on empty. By the way, if you enjoy listening to psychology content like this while working, relaxing, or before going to sleep, you can find Apex Psychology on Spotify. Simply click the link in the video description or scan the QR code on the screen to listen anytime. Now, let's continue. So, when both dopamine and norepinephrine are this unreliable, what does daily life actually look like for someone with ADHD? Let's break down the 6 psychological signs of ADHD. 1. Inattention. Society calls this losing focus, but the more accurate name for it is being unable to steer focus. The ADHD brain is like a TV with a broken remote. It keeps changing channels, and there is nothing you can do about it. You are sitting in a meeting, but your brain is busy analyzing the hum of the ventilation system. Every outside distraction, the sound of typing, a car horn, a Slack notification ping, carries the exact same weight as whatever your boss is saying. 2. Hyperfocus. Here is something most people do not know. Someone with ADHD can focus at a superhuman level. When they find something stimulating enough to push their already underpowered dopamine system to full capacity, like a new video game or falling down a Wikipedia rabbit hole about the fall of the Roman Empire at 3 in the morning, their brain locks on like a missile. They grind for 10 straight hours, forget to eat, forget to sleep, forget to use the bathroom, and let the world around them fall apart. At this point, the bicycle brakes are completely useless. 3. Impulsivity. Have you ever blurted something out and cut someone off mid-sentence even though you knew it was rude, or hit buy now on Amazon and dropped a few hundred on something you immediately regretted 5 minutes later? That is impulsivity, because the CEO up in the prefrontal cortex is asleep on the job. The gap between having an impulse and acting on it is basically zero. The brain has not finished filtering yet, but the mouth is already talking and the hand is already moving. The desk of someone with ADHD usually looks like the aftermath of an explosion. Their hard drive is a total mess of files named Untitled 1 or 1, 2, 3, 4. Why? Because sorting and organizing things requires something called executive function, a set of extremely draining mental tasks that their nervous system has already run out of power for. 5. Mood swings. People with ADHD experience the world through a speaker turned all the way up. A small piece of criticism can knock them flat like the world is ending. A little bit of good news can light them up like they just hit the jackpot. Because their neurotransmitters are unstable, their emotions ride like a roller coaster. 6. Lack of motivation. This is the one that gets labeled lazy more than anything else. But look deeper. They are not lazy. The ADHD brain simply runs on 2 things: interest or urgency. When a deadline is a month away, that task basically does not exist to them. But when there are only 4 hours left, that is when the panic kicks in. It sends norepinephrine spiking through the roof. At that point, it is no longer just regulating attention. It becomes the body's all systems emergency signal. That chemical jolt hits the prefrontal cortex, the napping CEO, and forces it to wake up and get to work. Not because more dopamine showed up, but because the body activated a completely different emergency pathway. That is why someone with ADHD can suddenly lock in with a terrifying level of sharpness in the final hours before a deadline. They did not choose to procrastinate. They were stuck grinding through the wait for a survival dose of adrenaline just to be able to move. But you know what? Those 6 signs are just the tip of the iceberg. That is all anyone on the outside can see. Behind those behaviors that look impulsive and messy is an inner world full of invisible wounds. If you're watching this with a typical brain, you might shrug and think, honestly, that sounds like me too. Everyone loses focus sometimes or waits until the last minute. But what things look like on the surface is one thing. The reality inside the operating system of someone with ADHD is a completely different world. We are going to walk through the 3 most brutal layers of their inner experience, the ones that almost never show up in a medical diagnosis but end up shaping their entire life. Layer 1, time blindness. How do you experience time? Like a straight line, right? 8 in the morning, then noon, then evening. Past, present, and future flowing one after the other. But for someone with ADHD, time is not a sequence. Their reality only has 2 settings, now and not now. To their nervous system, the concepts of in a little while, tomorrow, or next week are something completely abstract and unreal. Neurologically speaking, I'll do it later is almost the same as I'll never do it. Not because they do not respect their commitments, but because their brain cannot build a continuous sense of time. This perfectly explains why they are always late, why they forget their loved ones' birthdays, and why they completely freeze up when someone asks them to map out a 5-year plan. Living with time blindness is like floating in a permanent present, where the clock is always playing tricks on your sense of reality. Layer 2, the shame spiral. Try to imagine this. From age 7 to age 25, every single day, you hear things like, why do you always forget everything? How do you mess up something that simple? You're smart, so why are you so lazy and irresponsible? People with ADHD are trying incredibly hard, working 5 or 10 times harder than the average person just to get through the basic demands of daily life. But the world only sees the outcome, never the effort. Slowly, all of that criticism piles up. It seeps in. It creates an incredibly painful condition called RSD, or rejection sensitive dysphoria. The person with ADHD stops blaming their circumstances and locks in on the cruelest possible conclusion. The problem is me. I am just a lost cause. Not the brain, not the dopamine, my personality. People with ADHD often carry a quiet, persistent feeling that they are somehow broken. They feel ashamed of themselves. This deep sense of guilt and shame does a 100 times more psychological damage than forgetting your keys or showing up late ever could. Layer 3. Identity conflict. And here is the central paradox. The frustration that most people with ADHD cannot put into words. I know exactly what I need to do. I just can't do it. They are sharp. They have vision. They can see the enormous gap between their potential and the reality where they are standing still. They know exactly what step 1, step 2, and step 3 look like, but the moment they sit down to work, they fall into what is called ADHD paralysis. Their body feels like it has been glued to the chair. Not a single command gets executed. The gap between knowing what to do and actually doing it is the sharpest psychological pain that comes with this condition. It gnaws at them every single night. And the cruelest part is that it is almost completely invisible to everyone around them. Think about it. What do you do when you are carrying time blindness, the shame spiral, and identity conflict inside you, but you still have to survive in a world that runs on order, punctuality, and structure? Survival instinct immediately kicks in with the harshest defense mechanism of all: masking. Masking is the ADHD person's ultimate art of disguise. The moment they step out to the front door, they switch into Oscar-worthy actor mode. To hide the restlessness, they tense up every muscle in their body, dig their nails into their thighs just to sit still, and look engaged through a 2-hour meeting. To avoid being seen as rude, they repeat a loop in their head. Don't interrupt. Don't interrupt. So intensely that by the time the meeting is over, they cannot remember a single thing that was discussed. To seem organized, they create piles of to-do lists, plaster sticky notes everywhere, and work hard to look professional while completely panicking on the inside. Sound familiar? But what is the cost of putting on this show? It is a devastating drain on energy. People with ADHD burn most of their mental fuel every single day just to perform the role of a normal person. The moment they put the key in the door and take that mask off, they collapse. Literally, they drop onto the couch and sink into hours of doom scrolling. The dishes sit unwashed. They cannot bother to cook. They do not even have the energy to shower. They feel a bone-deep emptiness. The battery is clinically dead. Not because they worked too much today, but because they spent every last drop of their energy suppressing who they actually are. This is an exhaustion that nobody can see, nobody can measure, and that almost never gets called by its real name. Recognizing what makes you different is a necessary first step, but it is not enough. Holding tight to an ADHD diagnosis and sitting around complaining about it is not going to make your life any better. The next step is to hack the system. We have to take the mask off, stop forcing the Ferrari down a dirt road, and start building a life that actually matches the way your brain is wired. 1. Address the biology. ADHD medication can be a powerful tool, but it is absolutely not something you experiment with on your own. Using medication requires a thorough evaluation and a prescription from a specialist. When diagnosed properly and used correctly, the medication works by helping the brain stop wasting the dopamine and norepinephrine it already has, giving that loose outlet a real connection to the power. But remember, medication is a support tool, not a magic fix. There is also a medication that is completely safe and completely free. Cardio. Moderate to high-intensity aerobic exercise like running, cycling, or swimming for about 20 to 30 minutes before mentally demanding work will push the brain to produce its own neurotransmitters naturally. It is the perfect pre-workout to wake up your prefrontal cortex. 2. Free up your RAM. Keep nothing in your head. Never trust your memory. It is basically a 2 GB RAM card that is constantly overflowing. Push everything out into your external environment. To tackle time blindness, go get a time timer, which is a visual clock. Its red section shrinks as time passes, turning invisible time into something solid that hits you right in the eyes so your brain can actually feel it moving. And apply a ruthless binary rule. When something lands in your hands, either do it right now or schedule it in your calendar immediately. Wipe the phrase "I'll do it later" permanently out of your vocabulary. 3. Break tasks down and make them clear. The survival skill here is divide and conquer. The ADHD brain immediately freezes when it looks at a large amount of work. It does not know where to start, so it just stands still. Instead of a vague goal like finish the report this week, cut it down into tiny crystal clear tasks. For example, Section 1 has to be submitted by 2000 p.m. today. 4. Build an emotional buffer. Researcher Russell Barkley does not call emotional dysregulation a side symptom of ADHD. He calls it a core symptom. The reason goes back to the same place. An underfunctioning prefrontal cortex means the gap between a trigger and a reaction is basically nothing. When your boss criticizes you, a typical person has a few seconds to filter their reaction. For you, that filter is broken. You have already typed a response before you had a chance to think. So the advice "just calm down" is nearly useless for an ADHD brain. You have to actively create an artificial buffer. The moment you feel your heart rate spike and the heat rushing to your head, lock in one sentence. I am getting heated right now, and the next second go get a glass of water or step out of the room for 5 minutes. That physical disconnect is not cowardice, and it is not running away. That is you manually clicking the emergency brake back into place, the one your nervous system was never given. 5. Find the right challenge, because the ADHD brain is always starving for stimulation. Forcing it into routine is torture. To wake the system up, you have to feed it the fuel it is starving for, creativity. For someone with this condition, creativity is not a hobby. It is a survival need. Actively go out and find your right challenge. For adults, that might be writing, building a startup, cooking, gardening, or building models. For kids, sometimes it is as simple as setting up a lemonade stand, coloring, or doing crafts. The form does not matter. What matters is that it carries meaning, gives room for creativity, and creates a feeling of winning. Whether you are 7 or 70, that hunger never goes away. Throw your brain a problem interesting enough to sink its teeth into, and it will light up on its own. After everything we just walked through, what is the one thing to take with you? If you have ever thought of yourself as a defective version of a human being, listen closely. The ADHD brain is not a flaw that needs to be fixed to match everyone else. The medication, the time management apps, the strategies you just heard, none of those are meant to turn you into someone else. They are meant to help your unique operating system run the way it was actually designed to. Think of it like glasses, not because your eyes are useless, but because those eyes need a tool to see more clearly. Stop punishing the Ferrari for not running smoothly on a dirt road. Understand your own operating system. Accept its blind spots. Get it some proper brakes, and you will find your own runway. If you saw yourself or someone you love in this video, share it. Understanding is always the first step toward healing. And don't forget to like and subscribe to keep exploring the mysteries of the mind with Psychovia. I am Psychovia. Thank you for having the courage to look at yourself honestly today. See you at the top.